Finance and Infrastructure Board. Can I just remind members that the meeting is being live streamed. If you want to speak, please indicate, and when I call you to speak, please ensure you switch your microphone on, and I understand that the cameras will then automatically home in on you as you make your contribution. Right, so let's move on to the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda.
Where is the Mayor?
If you look at the agenda, you will see that when we get to item 2, that will be covered under apologies and substitutions. So I will be grateful if you don't interrupt in the meeting when it's not appropriate. Thank you.
Chair, it is appropriate.
Is this a point of order?
Yes.
If it's going to be a point of order, please say point of order.
Point of order.
Okay, yes. Please carry on, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. This meeting is not quorate. The paragraph 3.2, I think it is, on page 72 of the Constitution says that the quorum of this board will be 4 voting members, including the Mayor.
Well, you will find when we get to agenda item 2 that we have the Deputy Mayor in place of the Mayor, which I understand is satisfactory as far as the quorum issues are concerned. But I'll take guidance from officers on that.
Yeah, that's right, Chair.
Thank you. Right, if we go back to item 1 then, election of Vice Chairman. We have to elect a Vice Chairman, as indeed I believe all the boards are doing. So do I have a nomination, please? Yes, Councillor Waltham.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Shreve, please.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Shreve?
Yes, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other nominations? No? Okay, so do we need a vote on that if there are no other nominations, or is Councillor Shreve automatically elected?
I think we need to take a vote, Chair.
Right, we're going to take a vote. Remember that all votes are now recorded. So I'll hand over to my colleague on the left here to run through the voting.
Thank you, Chairman. We are voting on the election of a Vice Chairman. I will read out the name of each member. Would those voting for say yes, those voting against say no, and those abstaining say abstain. Ingrid Sheard.
For.
Philip Jackson.
For.
Sean Matthews.
Yes.
Liam Kelly.
Yes.
Rob Waltham.
For.
Neil Poole. For. Stan Shreve.
For.
Donald Allister.
For.
Richard Wright.
Yes, for.
Ashley Baxter.
This meeting is not quorate.
Chairman, that's 9 votes for, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you. So, Councillor Shreve, you are Deputy Chairman of the board. Would you like to join us at the top table here, please? Right, now proceeding on to item 2 on the agenda, apologies and substitutions. Mr. West, are you dealing with this? No.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Mayor Dame Andrea Jenkins, and for substitutions we have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sheard, standing in for the Mayor today. Councillor Kelly will be replacing Councillor Sheard for Lincolnshire County Council, and Councillor Nanastad will be replacing Councillor Tweddle for the non-constituent membership.
Councillor Baxter.
can you please ask an officer to explain to me where within the Constitution it says that the mayor can be substituted by the deputy mayor at this particular board?
Can an officer respond to that, please?
I can't explain where it says that it is allowed, but it's silent on it, Chairman, the Constitution. If the deputy mayor is substituting for the mayor, then that means that we are quorate.
As I understand it, in effect, the deputy mayor is taking the place of the mayor. So therefore, as far as standing orders are concerned, we have a mayor present. That's my understanding. Well, I'm sure officers will either confirm or otherwise that view.
That's correct, Chairman.
Right, thank you.
Chair, I would like to draw
Councillor Baxter, you've got one more opportunity, and then I'm going to move on.
I would like to draw your attention to page 71 of the Constitution that says the quorum of this meeting will be 4 voting members, including the mayor. No mention of substitutes whatsoever.
Well, we have a mayor because, in effect, the deputy mayor is substituting for the mayor. So therefore, for the benefit of this meeting, Councillor Sheard is the mayor. Right, let's move on. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest on any items on today's agenda from members or officers, please? No, I don't see any. Thank you. Moving on then to item 4, the minutes of the meeting of the Business and Infrastructure Board held on the 25th of June 2025. All members have had an opportunity to see and hopefully read the minutes. I understand there are a number of amendments that one member wants to make. And Councillor Baxter, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. I did read these before. I have sent these through to the monitoring officer. I don't know if the monitoring officer is here.
Okay, so we have a number of written amendments, as I understand it.
I can tell you what they are. I was just asking if the monitoring officer is here.
No, the monitoring officer is not here, Chairman.
Right, has an officer got the written amendments that are going to be made to the minutes, please?
I can tell you that
Well, sorry, I've just asked an officer. If you sent them in, the officers
We have got them in electronic form, Chairman, but they do need to be raised by the councillor,
Right,
and
okay.
we can then agree them at this meeting.
Right, so, sorry, Councillor Baxter, if you would like to go through them, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In the very first line, the words decision and within need correcting. In the attendance at the previous meeting, Councillor Dorian and Councillor Baxter were present at the meeting. Councillor Jackson is duplicated and should be at least once should be removed from the constituent list. In response to a question from Councillor Dorian, Mr Sederfield clarified that officers should introduce briefing cycles to the board. The minutes record that these would be monthly. I haven't seen any monthly minutes, so I assume that monthly should be deleted or corrected. There are issues with the word veterans, which make it appear that the villages are for a single veteran rather than the number of veterans, so that needs correcting. So far, these are typos. But my main problem is with the last part of the minute, which relates to the conversation that we had about funding from the Mayoral's Renewable Fund. We know that the Mayoral Renewables Fund has funded the County Council over £600,000. I don't think it's a secret that that's what that item was about. That was what we were discussing at the time. I have asked to see if there is an exempt minute or an exempt record of the meeting. I haven't seen one. I don't know if you have, Chair. But I see no reason why that part of the meeting shouldn't be minuted properly, because the reason that the meeting went into in camera was because of an embargo from the government. The embargo has now been lifted, and therefore the minute should be made public as well, and so that we should be able to see and hear the reasons why some members of this committee, including the Mayor, were proposing that we might send back the £600,000 to the government if they didn't meet our aspirations or the aspirations of the Mayor. Therefore, as well as making this minute public, I would also like an update on what happened next. Did we get the money? And if so, did we get the money with the conditions that we wanted to attach? Thank you.
Right, thank you. First of all, can we agree on the first four amendments that Councillor Baxter raised, which were around correcting grammatical errors and dealing with the attendance? Is everybody content with those? Yeah, okay. Thank you for raising those. With regard to the last point you made about the minutes on the exempt items, I do agree. We do need a full minute on those, even if it subsequently still has to be considered as exempt business. Will there be a full minute coming forward following that decision at the previous meeting? Yes, there will be, so we'll be getting some minutes on that. We don't have matters arising on the agenda at this meeting, so there isn't an opportunity to report back on this agenda, but I'm sure once the minute comes round, everybody will be fully aware of what's happened with regard to that agenda item. But in future, I think we do need to make sure we have proper minutes on exempt items, even if those minutes have to be taken as exempt business. Councillor Baxter, another?
Thank you. Can I have clarification? When this minute is produced, will it be in the public domain or will it be kept private?
Well,
Because we like transparency and openness in this authority.
I can't, I mean, we don't know that at the moment because we don't know whether there's still any exempt aspect to the response. That will be clarified when we get those minutes through, I'm sure, and hopefully that'll be in the near future. Okay, thank you. Right, moving on to item 5, public question time. We have received...
I think we have to vote on receiving the minutes.
Oh, my apologies. We do need to... I've just been told quite rightly that we do need to agree the receipt of the minutes. So could I have a proposer for the minutes, please, with the amendments that we've already agreed?
I'm happy to propose.
Councillor Shreve and second Councillor Waltham. Right, we need to run through the voting procedure again. Mr West.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Ingrid Sheard.
Agreed.
Philip Jackson.
For.
Sean Matthews.
Agreed.
Liam Kelly.
Agreed.
Rob Waltham. Agreed. Neil Poole. Agreed. Stan Shreve.
Agreed.
Donald Alistad. Richard Wright.
Chairman, I'm going to vote against because we don't vote on receiving minutes. We vote on the accuracy of minutes, and we've all just agreed that last minute is inaccurate, so I can't vote for.
Well, technically it's not inaccurate. It's not complete, but it's not inaccurate. Anyway, in my view. Sorry, carry on with the voting.
Ashley Baxter. That's 8 for and 2 against. Yeah.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. Moving on to item 5, public question time. We have one question from a member of the public from Anne Dorian. So I will read out the question. She's not here to ask the question, so I will do it on her behalf. With regard to the Great Exhibition of Lincolnshire, residents would like assurances around the value of this event. To that end, please give a complete breakdown of costs incurred thus far, coupled with anticipated costs, e.g. any outstanding invoices, in staging the event, along with any sponsorship packages which have been sold to offset those costs. Please also provide information relating to the number of exhibitors, the types of business and industry they represent, the number of Lincolnshire residents who have booked tickets, the number of ticket bookings from people who live outside of Lincolnshire, the number of British investors and the number of international investors who have committed to attend the event. And I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor, who is substituting for the Mayor, to respond to that question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So the authority is committed to providing the assurances that have been requested. The Great Exhibition on the 22nd of October provides an amazing opportunity for businesses in Greater Lincolnshire to showcase what they do and what we, as an area, are renowned for. We have over 15 embassies attending who have a keen interest in how trade relationships can develop further for us. We asked for clarification on this question, which was only received yesterday. As a result, there has been insufficient time for a substantive answer to be prepared that covers all of the points raised. A written response will be provided to Ms. Dorian and will be included within the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you very much for that response. There are no other public questions. So moving on to item 6, Chair's announcements. There are no Chair's announcements. Moving on to item 7, the Business and Infrastructure Board Terms of Reference. This is to receive a report from the Monitoring Officer, which provides an opportunity for the Board to agree its terms of reference. Is there an officer who wants to run through these terms of reference and pick out any salient points? Have all members had an opportunity to read them?
Chairman, the report's been circulated in advance, and in the absence of the monitoring officer, I would just like to ask you to accept these as terms of reference. It is it is important that the board have sight of these and that they accept them going forward. So I am assuming that all members have read them, and if they've got any questions, I can get back to the monitoring officer at the earliest opportunity.
Right, thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. These terms of reference include the item that I've been banging on about during the meeting, and that is part 4 on page 17. I don't know if that's the right place for it to be within the terms of reference. I'd see that the rules on quorum are set to change. Is it this body that would change them, or is it the strategic authority that would change for terms of reference?
Mr. West.
I believe it's this board that makes recommendations to the strategic authority.
Okay, and will these notes also go to the governance and audit meeting prior to arriving at the strategic authority?
Yes, that would make sense.
And last meeting we had in camera item, if I'm allowed to say, we were told that the mayor, so for a vote to go through, it needs to have a majority of the committee, including the mayor. Is that still the case, or has it changed in light of, it seems to say here that the mayor no longer needs to attend this board meeting, and clearly she doesn't.
I think you'll see on each of the agenda items, it does say what the voting arrangements are, so I presume there is still a requirement for the mayor or deputy mayor to be at the meeting. And where appropriate, the mayor has to be in the majority as well.
So, on your next agenda item, the voting arrangements are simple majority with the mayor in the majority. If the mayor's not here, then I guess somewhere in the Constitution it really ought to say that in the absence of the mayor, such as this afternoon, that the deputy mayor is the mayor. It might seem pedantic, but these words are important because
I think it would be sensible for the terms of reference to be amended to clarify that point. If we could arrange for that to happen, please.
That can be done, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good point.
I'd also like to say, Chair, that it would be polite and the Mayor would be welcome to these meetings. I don't know why she can't get here this afternoon. She was in Lincoln this morning. Is there a reason why she's not here?
Well, I don't think that's a matter for us to speculate on. It's a matter for her. We don't know what her commitments might be, so I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask that question. She's appointed a substitute for the afternoon in Councillor Sheard, who's a Deputy Mayor, of course. Do you have any other points, Councillor Baxter, before I move on? No, but we will ensure that amendment gets made to the terms of reference. Councillor Nannerstad, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, I hope.
That's fine, yeah.
Can you put your microphone on, please?
It is on, actually. Yeah, it is on. A quick question, because on the minutes, the Mayor is recorded as writing to the Secretary of State about various things, but there is nowhere that it's then able to be reported back if the Mayor isn't here. Surely there should be some sort of system, if something is said to be going to be done by somebody, that there's some arrangement that there is a report back somewhere, even if it's only in writing.
Yeah, I think we need. I'll take that on as chair to ensure that where something like this has happened at a previous meeting, we do get a report back at the next meeting. The other option, of course, will be to include matters arising from the minutes. I'm not advocating
matters arising because we might be here all day. But.
Would it be sensible to include matters arising immediately after the minutes within the Constitution, within the terms of reference?
It might be easier if it's just a written report on that item, even if it's only a few paragraphs, rather than get into the realms of matters arising, which I've been to many meetings where matters arising go on, and actually people use it for all sorts of reasons.
Okay, well, we'll ensure that that's reflected with appropriate wording in an amendment to the terms of reference as well. Thank you. Any other comments on these terms of reference? Can I, with the two amendments that have been suggested, can I have a proposer and seconder that we adopt these terms of reference? Councillor Shreve, proposing?
I'd like to propose, thank you.
Do you have a second? Yeah, thank you. So we proposer and seconder. So we'll go through the voting process.
Thank you, Chairman. We are voting on the terms of reference. Councillor Sheard.
Agreed.
Councillor Jackson.
Agreed.
Councillor Matthews. Agreed. Councillor Kelly.
Agreed.
Councillor Waltham. Agreed. Councillor Poole. Agreed. Councillor Shreve.
Agreed.
Councillor Nannerstad.
Agreed.
Councillor Wright.
Agreed.
Councillor Baxter. That's 9 in favour, 1 against.
9 in favour, 1 against. Therefore, those terms of reference with the two suggested amendments have been approved. Sorry,
please raise a point of order about that last item. We were told earlier in the meeting that these, if any changes to these, would be taken to the higher committee of the strategic authority. Paragraph 7.2 appears to say different. Could the monitoring officer please clarify?
I'm looking for Mr. West to clarify, or another officer to clarify on this, please.
The role and arrangements of the business will be reviewed. Sorry, Chairman, that reads to me that the board will consider the terms of reference annually and reviewed by the authority, so presumably based on the recommendations of the board.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the question was.
the question is, who has the authority to change these terms of reference? Do we here have the authority, or is it the strategic authority that has the ability to change the terms of reference?
It's the strategic authority, Chairman. But the board obviously have to have a say in their own terms of reference.
So as I see it, we're making a recommendation to the authority.
That's how I
to
read
amend
it,
them.
Chairman.
Yeah.
But
Have to say the wording there is not very clear either, to be quite honest. And can I say, as chairman, it would be really helpful if we didn't have such imprecise wording in some of these terms of reference, because it's just leaving us open to challenges of this nature, which isn't really very edifying for members of the public when they're watching these meetings, is it? You know, we really do need to tighten up on wording in these things. So can we read them more carefully in future before they appear on the agenda? Thank you.
Point taken, Chairman. Councillor Wright.
Councillor Wright.
Chairman, I wanted to raise a point of order along those lines, if I can, because this is getting slightly ridiculous. We thought, we knew that this whole organisation, the Combined Authority, would take some time, and we were told that's because of structures, and that's understandable. But we're coming to meetings and we're finding out that terms of reference are wrong. From the district council point of view, we're having the wrong people invited or not invited to meetings. And the organisations involved in putting these minutes and these terms of reference together are not fledgling organisations in themselves. So can I just suggest and put a plea out that there's a bit of a pause before agendas and everything else goes out. All of these are gone through. We shouldn't be experiencing this. As you say, in front of the public, it's not great. I can understand us having to try and work out how we'll work together, I say, within the structures and boards, but we shouldn't be debating in terms of reference and having to find out how to make those work. There's inaccuracies at the moment through a lot of the paperwork that's coming out to us, and it's frustrating for quite a few of us.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wright. I agree entirely with that viewpoint. Right, so we've dealt with item 7, and members' concerns are noted as well. Let's move on to item 8, and this is the STEP project, as members will see from the agenda papers. And we are receiving a report from the Interim Chief Operating Officer introducing the opportunities that the STEP project offers to Greater Lincolnshire. I understand that we will also be receiving a presentation from Ben Bradley. So I'll hand over to Mr. Serdyfield first.
Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you today is to highlight the opportunities that the STEP programme will offer to Greater Lincolnshire, being located just across the Trent at West Burton. There are clear supply chain opportunities for the area to support both the skills required and the physical products required to develop the site over the coming years. It is expected that the STEP programme will reach far and wide across Greater Lincolnshire and will have a positive impact on the wider economy for the region. So the intention today is that Ben takes us through an overview of STEP and the opportunities so that members have a clearer understanding of the timelines that are ahead of us for STEP Fusion, but also how this will impact on local communities and the businesses that we work with. So I'll hand over to Ben to take us through the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for inviting me along today to share a little bit more about STEP Fusion and the programme and how it will impact locally. I'm Ben Bradley, so I'm Head of Communications for STEP Fusion, or for UKIFS, who are the body that are responsible for the programme. I'm going to run through a little bit of the headline on the science and what it is we're trying to achieve. I'll keep that brief. And then a little bit more on local impacts, and particularly the implications for Lincolnshire, because I recognise the first question might be, is this thing not in Nottinghamshire? Of course, but it is a short pitching wedge across the River Trent into Gainsborough, and as you'll see from the presentation, the impact of it is genuinely regional and national in its scope, and certainly in its benefits and requirements. And I'll talk a little bit about both. If I could jump on to the next slide, please. So the UK Atomic Energy Authority is the UK's research laboratory around fusion technology. It's been based down in Oxfordshire for some 50, 60 years, and its aim is to develop fusion technology and maximise the scientific and economic benefit. That's a research institution, and from that, UK Industrial Fusion Solutions has been spun out as a separate company to lead the STEP Fusion programme. Now, our mission is to develop a prototype fusion energy plant and particularly to create a path to the commercial viability of fusion. Now, the stereotype around fusion technology and energy is always that it's always 15 years away, but the situation has changed quite dramatically in the last 5 years, where we've moved from a scientific and research endeavour to now a commercialisation endeavour. It's about creating the components and the industry that will be able to deliver fusion technology at scale and at a level of cost that makes it a key part of the UK's future energy mix. So UKIFS, or the STEP programme, is about commercialisation, it's about building a prototype and about developing the UK industry to be able to build commercial power plants around the world in the future. If I could jump to the next slide. And the next one, please. So fusion at a very high level, and I'm not a scientist, and you'll find that out in the next 60 seconds, is the opposite of what people consider around nuclear fission technology. So fission is taking a large, complex atom and breaking it apart. Fusion is taking small ones and pushing them together under intense conditions. So this is the process that powers the sun and the stars. In that case, that pushing together is done by the gravity around the sun. We obviously don't have that level of gravity here, so here we have to heat it to very high temperatures indeed, and that's a little bit of an understatement. It's 150 million degrees, 10 times hotter down the centre of the sun. So the middle of our fusion machine, our tokamak machine, will be the single hottest place in the universe, which leads you to understand a little bit about the engineering challenge that we're facing in terms of the bit now, the components that are required to make that work. But effectively, it's taking molecules of hydrogen, as you see here, pushing them together in those very intense conditions, confined by magnets. And what comes out the other end is helium and a neutron moving at very fast pace, and that's where our energy comes from. What our process also does is create more tritium, which means that once the thing is up and running, it fuels itself. We feed that back around the system. It sustains itself in terms of the reaction and is the cleanest and most efficient form of energy production that exists anywhere in the world. 1 gram of fuel, of those hydrogen fuels, is enough to drive your electric car to the moon. And when you compare that with the efficiency of carbon fuels, coal, for example, it's roughly 10 million tonnes. That it would take to do that. So an incredibly efficient energy production process. Next slide, please. And the benefits of that, some are fairly obvious. So it's carbon, low carbon. It is limitless clean energy once you get these things up and running. It is inherently safe. So unlike fission, which creates a chain reaction and can grow and grow, fusion wants to stop. And our challenge is to keep it going. So if anything about it doesn't work, it just stops. It is immensely reliable, so this is base load energy. Once it's up and running, it's not reliant on sun or wind or any of those variable aspects. As I said, the most energy efficient opportunity that we have in terms of energy production, and a real contributor to energy security. We can create this domestically. The IP is owned by the UK. There are all sorts of spin-off and economic benefits to that, but the geopolitical implications of that actually are really significant in terms of reliance on foreign gas, for example, around the world. So huge geopolitical and security benefits too. Next one, please. And what is STEP Fusion? Then next one again. Thank you. So this is the machine that we're building. It's called a tokamak. The one on the left is a research machine that exists in a few places, including at our Culham base in Oxfordshire, a traditional donut-shaped tokamak without the sugar, and one that is in a project called ITER in the south of France, which is a similar research project. But we're not doing research, we're trying to create a commercial industry. And we've got a slightly different design, so more of this chord apple shape that you can see on the right. There's a research version of that called Mast Upgrade down in Culham. And Culham, so our UK AEA head office, is probably the globally significant home of this kind of research and this technology. Really serious kind of player worldwide in terms of this the research. And the one on the far right there, the STEP one, is what we're trying to build and develop. As I've said, The challenge is taking the science that we know works and all of this stuff that can work for 2 or 3 minutes and creating the kind of components like the confinement magnets, for example, that can withstand 150 million degrees, not just for 25 minutes, but actually all the time. And that's the piece of work we're doing now with industry to develop those components and tackle those engineering challenges. Next one, please. And what we're trying to build is a prototype at West Burton, which will produce net energy, generate the fuel that can be recycled back around the system and prove that that concept works, achieve high availability of energy in minimal land use, and also minimize the cost of construction. Through this R&D phase, effectively, in developing the prototype, we need to develop the blueprint that is then copy and pastable by the industry that we develop concurrently to go and build this thing around the world at a cost point that makes it a viable source of energy for people to invest in and to build these power plants. That is the challenge, not at West Burton to put vast amounts of energy on the grid, but to prove the case and to build the industry that can then take and proliferate commercial power stations from that point of view. What West Burton will then become is the global hub of research and innovation around clean energy, around this kind of technology, manufacturing, engineering, and alongside the plant will be a research and innovation area zone, a bit like our Culham campus is now, that is home to lots of industry that's invested in this kind of technology, people who are building components, people who have connectivity to the kind of research and work that we're doing, and the associated jobs and economic benefit that come with that industrial aspect as well. Next one, please. So more than just a power plant, as I've said, we've got to demonstrate that that works, but there are a number of key things that will come from it. The information baseline will track exactly what decisions we've made throughout this process, the good ones, the bad ones, and that's the bit that, from a UK PLC perspective, is really valuable, because that's our intellectual property, that's the bit that tells the story about how you develop commercial fusion, and that's the bit we can sell around the world. Or license or utilise in any way to develop this and make sure that the benefit comes back to the UK. And that speaks to the UK economic value point there in the top right. There's also lots of spin-offs from this, lots of technology that's relevant to things like medicine, for example, and all sorts of other industries that we can kind of access along the way. It's a key part of the industrial strategy, both nationally and also locally, in terms of the local economic development, the social value that it brings. So huge amount of investment and requirement around skills, as you might imagine, both in terms of the science, but also in construction and engineering. Huge amount of opportunity around infrastructure investment to access the site, but also the wider work around supply chains, the opportunities for local businesses. So one of our key kind of planks of our mission is making sure that all of that happens within the region. We're moving our workforce, we're moving our investment steadily from Oxfordshire to West Burton. We're building research and test rigs at West Burton. We are working with combined authorities and local authorities to plan out infrastructure requirements, and that partnership has been around for a number of years already, starting to map out how all of that will work. But the long-term economic and social benefit for local people is really, really significant when you consider some of the numbers I'll show you in a minute around the jobs and connected opportunity. Next one, please. And I'll fly through this one, but this is broadly how we work. We've got the government on the left, effectively. We've got industry on the right, and UK Industrial Fusion Solutions is intended to bridge the gap. So we're publicly funded at the minute, but we've kind of spun out of the UK Atomic Energy Authority with a view to be able to attract private sector investment, for this to be effectively a public-private partnership, and for us to be able to use that industry engagement to commercialise and to make maximum benefit from the intellectual property that we create through the research. Thank you. So this bit might be of most interest to you. So West Burton, the red dot there in the middle. And you can see the dark green areas where there's a really, really significant workforce expectation, a really significant industry expectation, and the lighter green where, you know, the expected kind of travel to work areas stems all the way out to Immingham, to Grimsby, to the Humber, and all the way to the left to Sheffield, to Rotherham, where there's another fusion energy technology facility, and down beyond Nottingham and Leicester. it is genuinely regional impact. This is just a kind of workforce map, but actually when you map out particularly the connectivity to the Freeport, to the clean energy innovation in the Humber and at Grimsby, there's a huge amount of industrial connectivity, a huge amount of supply chain opportunity in manufacturing, in logistics, in engineering, and there's also a number of developing research and academic partnerships, including the University of Lincoln, Lincoln College, who are involved in both FE work around construction engineering and also the kind of high-level science aspects of this. So very much embedded in that academic partnership as well. And part of the early planning of all of this, again, working with hopefully yourselves, the Combined Authority, local authorities, is mapping all of that out and making sure we get maximum benefit for all of those separate aspects within the region as we go along the way. So hopefully this demonstrates that although, as I say, it is 100 metres on the Nottinghamshire side of the border, it is genuinely regional impact with some really significant opportunities throughout Lincolnshire. And when you add into that the wider, what's known as a supercluster of the 3 power stations down the river, which includes SMR technology, data centre, clean hydrogen technology, you can multiply that by 3 in terms of scale and opportunity across the kind of clean energy environment. Next one, please. And this is the timeline. So at the minute, we've just completed the kind of concept design. We've secured the next phase of funding from government, and we're now preparing for mobilisation effectively. So we will bring a Tier 1 construction partner on board from December and embed them in the programme at the start of next year. And we are starting now to contract with engineering businesses to bring in the capability that we need across the programme. We will finalise our design and we'll finalise our plans for the site between now and about 2029, and then we aim to begin construction on site. There's at the minute what is a 2.5-3 year planning process to go through as well through all of that. We're hoping government's talking at the minute about expediting that process and making it simpler, and we'd be very keen for that. So if anyone wants to go and chat to them about that, please do. But this is our timeline to press go on this machine by 2040. There are things that could bring that forward, not least further investment or technological advances. Inevitably, in a long-term major project, there are also things that could push that back, like delays on infrastructure and others. So it's really important that we work together to facilitate all of those requirements around the edges. Next one, please. And I think I'm coming to the end from memory. There's a few bits around sites, so let's jump through these quickly. We've touched on regional benefit. This is the site, by the way, at West Burton, and you can see there at the bottom of the screen. It annoys me that this picture is upside down, but the north is at the bottom, and you can see the bridge and the edges of Gainsborough there, which demonstrates just how close it is. Gainsborough is the local population and will arguably stand to gain the most benefit from the economic opportunities that come from this. There's also a huge infrastructure requirement to get that connectivity to Gainsborough right, as you might imagine, and make sure the access across the river is right in particular. But as I've mentioned, there's a list there of wider benefits that I won't go through again, but you can see them there on the screen. Next one, please. We've been doing an awful lot of work since the site was selected in 2021. And for those who don't know, so I was the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council who ran the bid for that site selection, and we managed to drag it up here to West Burton, recognising the potential economic and social opportunity that it brings. Ever since then, this community engagement has been ongoing. So we've had a number of events in local areas, in Gainsborough and Trinity Hall, all around different parts of Lincolnshire with West Lindsey, with the County Council and others, and of course all across Nottinghamshire as well, all the way from kind of mayor's level, and Dame Andrea came to visit our site a few weeks ago, right down to local parish councils, local schools. And we've got an outreach programme in local schools as well that aims to encourage interest and access to STEM and start to get the guys in that photo who are at primary school now but will be of the right age to be the nuclear physicists who press go on the machine in 15 years' time to encourage that interest already. Next one, please. And these are the people that we work with across that partnership, including, of course, many of your own authorities and the Greater Lincolnshire Combined Authority. And we're starting to build that into a programme function that is able to kind of drive forward the best approach, the best decisions to deliver the wider work of the programme, and hopefully overcome some of the geographical and authority boundaries that exist within that. But that's been running for a number of years already. Next one, please. And some of those jobs numbers that I mentioned earlier on. So, and this is an annual average, 6,500 related operational jobs in the region off the back of this programme. And I should say, for definition, that East Midlands bit in the asterisk there at the bottom is the kind of wider East Midlands, Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Northants, Leicestershire, not the combined authority area. But unlike kind of civil nuclear plant, the fact that this one goes on to become an innovation and research institution off the back of it means you don't just get a peak of construction jobs and it all falls away, but the wider operation of the site into the future and the research area, the site as it goes forward, means a continual provision of jobs. People often consider it to be, you know, I need to be a plasma physicist to get involved in this. First person you meet when you come on site is the security guard, and it goes all the way through everything, catering, facilities management, everything you might expect from a major project that will be needed, so a whole range of opportunities. Next one, please. And this, I think, is my final one, and I touched on this earlier on, around the wider supercluster. So West Burton Power Station is one of three. Cottam, just to the south, which was recently announced as being home to an SMR project to power a data centre, which is really important to the UK in terms of powering AI and other technologies. Also spin over opportunities for things like agriculture, high energy intensity operations, defence, and other things that are particularly important to Lincolnshire. And then at High Marnham, it's the UK's biggest site for clean energy production currently, which flies a little bit under the radar, but another really significant brownfield site. So the conglomeration of all of those things presents arguably one of the UK's biggest growth opportunities on our doorstep, which is an exciting prospect. I think, Chairman, that's it. Please do follow us online, keep in touch. And I would say that you are all very welcome to come and visit the site. If you want to come and have a look around, I extend that opportunity. You know, please do take us up on it and come and have a look, because I think when you see the scale of the site, it gives you a real sense of what's possible there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you to Ben Bradley for a very exciting presentation. It's very obvious the potential benefits, both regionally and also within Greater Lincolnshire itself, of this development, albeit just over the border into a neighbouring area. So yes, all looking very positive. Any question? Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate how grateful I am to Ben for the presentation. It was really useful and informative. I could have done with it before Friday, actually, because I was a bit lost at times last week. It is a really exciting project, and it's fantastic that it's on our doorstep, and a short pitching wedge is a great example or picture of how far away from our borders it really is. For me, at this time, I think it's really important to look at the infrastructure. The benefits that we can get from this in the next 5 years is huge. I think, and when I think of this, I think of the A1, really, and railway infrastructure improvements. And I guess I'm thinking of that in terms of being the chair of the Mayor's Transport Board. These things will be needed and necessary very early on for this project. And so, whilst looking forward to visiting the site, I'd also like to continue negotiations and talks about where we go to get those infrastructures up and running sooner rather than later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nannerstad.
Yeah, a couple of things. Thank you for the presentation. It'd be useful to have a copy of the slides. It'd be very helpful. Just a couple of things. First of all, on your chart showing the workforce and where you expected people to come from, in the days when there were 3 power stations there, actually there was quite a lot of the workforce came from Lincoln, and perhaps more than is indicated on your chart there. There were quite significant numbers from Lincoln, relatively, and it's not actually that far to travel. So it's more than just West Lindsey comes into Lincoln and potentially other areas, but potentially parts of North Kesteven, villages near Lincoln. So that's quite important. The other thing is, on your presentation, a couple of times you said we're trying to develop, we're trying to build. Is it a case of trying to do this or actually going to do it?
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Chairman. And perhaps I might pick up on the previous question as well. But to that one, so workforce, absolutely. There is a level of work you can do on kind of theoretical mapping, but those who know the site and know the area know the legacy of workforce around those power stations, multiple generations who've worked there and travelled from a fair distance away to go and do so. Our security guard on site at the minute is the third generation of her family to work at West Burton Power Station. There are a lot more stories like that. So I think that's absolutely right, and I certainly see the exciting opportunity of actually, this isn't a new thing, this is continuity of this part of the world delivering power for the UK, and from a workforce perspective, I think there's a lot of positive opportunity in that and positive interest in that, in attracting people to come and work on site. In terms of assurance around the programme, so as I said, the science is absolutely proven. We know we can get net energy from fusion. We know that it works because we exist and we are powered by fusion energy and powered by that kind of reaction. The challenge is one of scale. We know that we can develop technologies to grow the time that fusion reactions can last. We know that we can develop technologies, and you get new records all the time in terms of net power that comes from fusion. What we need to achieve, and our engineers have a huge amount of confidence in this, but I can't sit here and say I can guarantee we can achieve, because I'm not a scientist, and we can't predict the future, is being able to do that on a scale and at a cost that is commercially viable. So the dream scenario here is we create a prototype that proves the commercial viability of fusion technology. The UK owns it, we export it around the world, and we have the capability to go and build, and that potential is massive. What I will say is if it falls anywhere short of that, all the way through that piece of work in developing it, we will have huge benefits in spin-off technologies, in intellectual property, in workforce development that is relevant across a whole range of areas, including other major projects, including other forms of energy production. So it washes its face regardless, if that makes sense. But the holy grail, right, is making the thing work in a commercially viable way. That's the mission, and it's all set up to be able to do that. We have a huge amount of confidence in that. If I just might briefly to the infrastructure point, Chairman, that's the reason that I'm here, really, to come and talk to you guys. I'm grateful for your attendance on Friday at the collaboration meeting. The infrastructure requirements are significant, and the average time that it takes to build a new road, for example, or to get those things done is 7-8 years, right? So some of those decisions need to be taken quickly. Lots of work has been done to try and map those things out, but combined authorities in particular, and the constituent parts of that are the obvious vehicles in many ways with the kinds of powers and funds that they have to support the delivery of those things and the planning of those things. So your buy-in to the programme and to the delivery of some of that is really, really important.
Thank you for that response. And just before I bring other members in, can I just follow up on the point you were making about the viability of the project? I mean, we know that scientists across the world have been trying to make fusion work on a sustainable basis for literally decades. Who else is researching this across the world? Are we collaborating with them? And how far are we along the process compared with competitors in other parts of the world?
Thank you. It's a great question. In many ways, we're arguably world leaders in this. Fusion has been in a global collaboration for a long time, but the change that's happened is no longer a research project. And that kind of demonstrates the increased confidence in the outcome. The sense you've now got huge amounts of private capital going into fusion, around 6 billion in the last couple of years, especially into the States, who have a much more venture capital-led model of investment and growth than we do. And as I say, that's because we've shifted from it being a scientific and theoretical concept to an engineering and a delivery and a commercial concept now that excites private sector investors. So there's a lot of that going on. Particular competitors, I suppose, are inevitably the Chinese. Who knows what they're really up to, but we know they're doing something. The Americans have a strongly venture capital-led approach to this. There's no state program like ours there, but there are American companies who are really innovative in this space, and we are talking to those companies. There are opportunities to engage with them and bring them into the program. So there are a number of state-led versions of this. South Koreans, the Germans have a state version. They've largely been picked up off the back of ours as a result of the progress that we've made. So we really are kind of leading in terms of state apparatus in that sense and the delivery of this. There's a lot of collaboration. Ultimately, it will come down to somebody getting there first, right? But as I say, regardless, by building the trade, the capability, the engineering capability, the supply chain, even if somewhere else gets there first, the UK will be really well placed to maximise the benefit of that, because we will have skilled people and technology and expertise in different areas of it that will mean we'll be part of any programme that exists around the world.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. Although in most of that you've actually covered. I was going to say, you said, Ben, great presentation, but you said we're always 15 years away from fusion. Now, I've sort of been interested in this for quite some time. By some time, I'd say 2 years before you were born. So in 1987, there was a thing called the Joint European Tourist, the JET, at Culham, and I believe it was that year that Viscount Davison stood up in the House of Lords and committed the UK government to making sure that we were not only world leaders, but we were going to actually produce this. It was going to work. And that's when we blew the first tokamak that year, I think, and the team all disappeared off to Australia, if we want to know where they've been working. So if we are now, that many years on, and we're still saying we're just about there, it's just about viable, in reality, what is it? Because, we need it to know, because fusion over fission has got to be the ultimate, the goal, but just how far away are we from actually doing that? Commercially, not theoretical. I don't want to know I know the science, it's the commercial viability of actually doing that now, of the output far out exceeding the input and being viable.
Good knowledge on my birthday, by the way. Thank you. So you're right, it goes back a long time, and that is the running joke around fusion technology. JET was never meant to be a power station. JET's a research project, was a very successful research project, and has taken us from theoretical application to the point where we can now build industrially, and we can actually go and build a power plant that puts energy on the grid. That's the level of confidence that we've taken from that programme. So the guys who ran that would be very, very confident in sitting here and saying it was a huge success. Took longer than they thought. But now we have a fixed timeline for this, so we will start to build this power plant by 2030. That is absolutely written in our business case. We are finalising the concept designs, and we will put spades in the ground on that timeline, subject to the wider support and funding, obviously, that we need to do that, with a view to press and go, right, whilst all of us are still kicking. So there is a firm kind of deadline on that, and as I've explained in my previous answers, I think we've moved beyond the kind of abstract now into something really firm. The question at the end of it will be, can you get to the cost point that makes this something that people around the world want to buy to produce their energy? Can't answer that yet, because that's part of the programme and what we deliver. But as I've explained, the wider knock-on benefits of the work that we do in the interim have huge value as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Waltham.
Well, thank you, Ben, for your presentation. I think when you said you weren't going to be just the science thing would have been all to distraction. Clearly, Councillor Wright's all up on this, but for most of us, and I've heard this presentation from the scientists, and it sort of takes you to a whole new dimension. But clearly you're very passionate about it, and you articulated the project perfectly. So thank you for that. A couple of things. The first thing I'd say, just to echo the point that was made before about the jobs that came from this, because my uncle worked at West Burton Power Station, travelled 30 miles for what was a really good job. And so, to the point about education, I know you're doing some good work with schools, you're at Lincolnshire Show. How do we make sure that that you have a real broad spread around that education piece? You don't, because it's easy to do the schools that are nearest to the plant, but if there is a 30-mile travel to work area, how do we make sure you get across all of those schools? And then a second point really about business to business, because clearly there's a great opportunity, not just from fusion, but the site development, as you say, in the research and all the other round. How do we make sure that businesses, well, I'd say particularly in Lincolnshire, but I don't doubt in Nottinghamshire as well, all benefit from sort of a cluster approach to this, so we can start to see some innovation, some research and development, the stuff that we struggle on actually in one of the papers today. How do we get them to be part of the technological revolution that comes from this, that's science and business based?
Yeah, great questions. And so to touch on the schools one first. So we're in as many schools as we can, limited resources and all of that, as you'll understand. Focusing on the area immediately around site, so particularly Gainsborough schools, actually. We've got a chap in my team called Jordan who is an engineer, which is fantastic because it means he can go all the way from we are harnessing the energy of the stars in primary school to talking to PhD students about the technology, which is a real asset, I think, in terms of bringing all sorts of people, as you say, into the conversation. We have in Bassett Law District Council have supported with a kind of step outreach officer, so they're able to go into schools now on our behalf with our materials and do that. We'd love to work with as many people as we can to help develop that around the whole region, so that opportunity is there. We're doing as much as we possibly can, ranging from the outreach stuff to our Director of Science working directly with people like Lincoln University on collaboration around research and technology. On the business-to-business stuff, so we'll onboard our construction partner who will do and lead the supply chain development work. Part of that contractual arrangement is a real focus on the region and the opportunity for local supply chain, local engineering businesses, construction businesses in particular. There's a number of examples of people that we've engaged with on the way. We held a supply chain development event in Gainsborough at the Golf Club earlier in the year, and when we've got those construction partners on board, we'll do that again to continue to just share the story of how to get involved and engaged. From a wider manufacturing, long-term project perspective, we're a little bit early for that still. So the local contracts that have gone out have been for things like uniform providers and building our port cabin on the site. But there are already local contract opportunities, and we are already working with local businesses. That construction partner will be really key to then laying out next steps as to the big picture program engineering opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. What I've heard you say is that with £20 billion of public money, you can create something like 200 jobs a year. What I think I've heard you say is that this fusion technology is working somewhere in the world. Is it working somewhere in the world operationally, and is it working anywhere in the world commercially? We may be world leaders. I agree that the jobs are created, because I'm delighted that one of my daughter's friends from Deeping St James in Lincolnshire is now on a degree apprenticeship at the Atomic Energy place in Oxford. So when I spoke to him last time, he said that it's unlikely that we'll get a single kilowatt of usable energy until at least maybe 2045. Do you think that we'll get a single usable kilowatt hour of energy from this plant before 2045? If so, what year do you think we'll get any useful energy? When the useful energy starts flowing out of it, how is it going to be distributed across the rest of the country? Because there's a lot of nervousness in Lincolnshire about pylons and grid connections and so on. Presumably it will need the same grid connection as, for example, offshore, similar to offshore wind or onshore solar. It says here in a report from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers 2 weeks ago that the UK left Euratom, the European Atomic Energy Community, and ITER, which I think was mentioned on one of your earlier slides, ITER, which I think is French. We left that following Brexit, and so far we haven't managed to renew our friendship or our collaboration with them. So are we saying that we've got any international collaboration? Are we working as an independent British fusion reactor rather than a European or a world solution, Chinese, American, whatever? The Trump administration is cutting billions of dollars of science and research funding, so that would have to be commercial, I suppose.
Can we, sorry, can you just get to the end of your question, please, so that we can get an answer from Mr.
All of that, and how many houses do you think will be supplied with power, houses equivalent, will be supplied with power by this plant, and by what year?
Just one or two fairly simple questions for you there.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. One or two questions in there, but I will endeavour to answer all the ones that I can. So you mentioned 200 jobs. I'm not sure where that figure is from, but I think in the presentation, the East Midlands wide annual average was about 6,500 jobs. So at your,
if you'd like me to clarify, your slide said between 2019 and 2065, there would be 2,976 jobs in construction, 6,440 jobs. I've just looked at the number of years and divided by the number of jobs.
That's an annual average, not a total over the time period. So hopefully that's an easy one to clarify. In terms of public money, yes, it is publicly funded at the minute. There was an investment figure at the start of the programme that talked about it as a £20 billion investment project. Up to this point, that figure is more like 2 billion. And obviously the amount of overall taxpayer spending depends on how much private sector investment we can draw into the programme. So the point of UK IFS is to deliver venture capital, is to deliver private investment into the programme and make it that public-private partnership so that we're not reliant solely on taxpayers' funding. The more we can be successful at that, with the help of people, local authorities, combined authorities and others in terms of drawing inward investment into the region, the cheaper it will be for the taxpayer. But the knock-on effects and benefits far outweigh that in terms of the opportunities of spin-off technology, the opportunities of infrastructure that unlocks further growth, the opportunities of being able to utilise that IP in a global market that is estimated to be worth about £3 to £6 trillion by 2040. So really significant chunk of that market. A huge benefit if we can access some of that. Does it work anywhere? No, not at the minute, because the technology doesn't exist. It works in a research sense, and I think I've explained the journey from proving that we can deliver fusion energy. That absolutely does work in a number of places. Proving that we can scale that up consistently, so every few weeks we get a new record of the amount of energy that has been scaled up. What doesn't exist currently are the components required to make that run 24/7, 365, and to withstand all of the pressures and challenges of doing that. So that's what we're trying to achieve through the industrialisation process and working with those engineering partners. When will useful energy come? Well, we want to turn it on in 2040, and that will put energy onto the grid. It's not intended to put massive amounts of energy on the grid as a commercial station. It's a prototype, but that will be the blueprint and the industry that then can build commercial power stations. We expect that to be a core part of the UK's energy mix by the second half of the century. But in the short term, if you almost forget the long-term energy aspect of it, the short-term growth opportunity, both for the region and the UK, is really, really significant. So that opportunity is happening now. It's not just something for later. On that basis, I can't say how many homes because it's not meant to be a commercial power plant in that sense. So we don't expect to kind of be selling this energy out. That kind of comes in a next phase. And to the point finally about ITER, so post-Brexit, we were excluded from the ITER project, but actually as part of that collaboration, most of the partners involved in it now are going away and setting up their own state led versions of it, very similar to what we've led. We were the first people to do that. So other people are now copying us in that space. Inevitably, when you get to a point of private capital and business competitiveness, it becomes a little bit less collaborative and a little bit more of a drive to get this stuff done first. And that's probably the nature of the changing market in fusion technology.
Thank you very much. Right, can I bring in Alison Hands, please?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, Ben, thank you very much for the presentation. Really, really interesting, insightful, and certainly gave a little bit more flavour to what was quite a dry paper. I do think, and it's really positive to hear about, A, the money that's been invested from an educational perspective and the work that's being done across East Midlands Authority and the Greater Lincolnshire Combined Authority, and to talk about infrastructure from a roads perspective. The thing that I think we probably fail to think about is the much broader perspective. So although we talked about jobs from a construction perspective, there'll be a much bigger business impact in that local arena. And I know it's relevant to think about it from a perspective of a build in 2030 with an opening of a prototype in 2040, which I'm presuming is going to become quite a big innovation hub from the way you've described it. That will have greater impact into businesses, which is much broader, into secondary and tertiary business. And so I think we need to think about that, and I think that would be quite innovative to think about that, because I don't think generally we think in that way. So, you know, I think linking back into the business infrastructure would be really interesting.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. So it's not just a power plant, it is an innovation campus alongside, and that means, the aim is that if you are developing technology in this space anywhere in the world, this is the place you come. To be part of that ecosystem and to develop and hone that technology, to test it on our prototype. And as a result, Nottinghamshire and Lincolnshire become the global hub of fusion technology. That's the aim. And obviously around that, the wider supply chain connectivity, not just into the power plant, but into research and innovation. If you're in engineering, if you're in construction manufacturing, if you're in a scientific industry that has the opportunity to shift across into fusion, that opportunity is massive. Part of the work that we'll do with our research and innovation partners in the meantime is looking at how we support those businesses to make that transition into this sector and take advantage of that. So some of that early work is happening, but you're absolutely right that there's a huge amount to go at in that space.
Okay, great. Can I thank you, Ben Bradley, for an extremely thorough. Well, I think we need to move on actually, because we've spent a lot of time on this agenda item. So I'm going to thank Ben. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very passionate, very constructive, very thorough, and you've also responded to our questions very clearly as well. So we will obviously be following this project with interest as we move forward. It's obviously a long-term project, and just once again, thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation. We do have a couple of recommendations coming out of this, to note the content of the paper and to receive the presentation from Ben Bradley. Do I have a proposer and seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Matthews, Councillor Waltham. Right, let's go through the voting process.
Thank you, Chairman. We're voting for item 7. Sorry, item 8. Note the content of the report and receive the presentation. Councillor Sheard.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Waltham. Councillor Poole. Councillor Shreve.
For.
Councillor Nanastad.
Already actually have the presentation.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Councillor Baxter.
I agree. The second recommendation doesn't make any sense whatsoever. However, for.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Right, let's move on then to item 9, the Mayoral Enhanced Water Partnership. This is to receive a report from the Strategic Lead for Infrastructure and Economic Vision, which proposes the establishment of a new enhanced water partnership in Greater Lincolnshire, and members will also note it includes the terms of reference for that body at Appendix A on page 29. I think the report clearly sets out why we need this enhanced water partnership, but I will bring in Helena Davis just to provide some additional comment on the report.
Thank you, Chair. So, the Combined Authority committed to the establishment of an enhanced water partnership as part of its devolution deal with the government. So it was something that we were always going to look at establishing in some way. We see the role of the partnership as being very clearly defined and not replacing existing forums or existing partnerships or responsibilities of water providers or related agencies through the government. It also will not provide planning advice or carry out statutory functions and responsibilities relating to water management. We recognise that this remains in the remit of our local authorities, and rightly so. Essentially, the water partnership will be focused, strategic, and will work across boundaries and across organisations, providing leadership, bespoke collaboration, and alignment of resources to tackle specific strategic challenges. And that also will focus on economic growth and investment, tackling key constraints, but in a collective way, and lobbying for necessary changes or enhancements to government policy where necessary as well. It will be chaired by the Mayor, and there will be a core membership, which has been highlighted within the paper itself. And then we also suggest a co-opted membership, which will engage according to agenda topics identified at each meeting. The agenda items will be set by the partnership members, and collectively they will advise and suggest via related partnerships, through advisory panels, through the combined authority, and also through agency forums as well. So there'll be a complete partnership approach through existing routes that we already have and the new added value of the enhanced partnership. The terms of reference have been drafted and included as an appendix for the board's review today. And we ask that the board today endorses the establishment of an enhanced water partnership, agrees the terms of reference provided for that partnership, and approves the proposed membership for the water partnership. I have one amendment to the terms of reference that I just wanted to highlight today. On reflection, the chair of the Economic Advisory Panel, we feel, should be able to invite other members of the Economic Advisory Panel if an agenda item requires a certain amount of expertise in a certain topic. So therefore, we suggest that that would be at the chair of the Economic Advisory Panel's discretion to do so on certain occasions. And that's our suggested amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, and we note the proposed amendment to the terms of reference. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Waltham.
Thank you, Chair. I think, clearly this is a significant item that we're considering today. It's significant because we made it part of our devolution deal. It's of such importance for our county. So, particularly the coastal areas, which frankly, without some coordinated approaches, we'll never regenerate them because they won't exist. So I think, we absolutely need to have a platform of this scale. And, I certainly welcome the amendment that's been suggested working with the chair of the Economic Advisory Board. I think it's important that we do have support from business on this issue. I have to say, I did pick up on those that are cited as potential contributors. And I have to say that I would like to put on record my thanks to the Mayor, because she picked up in response to my request that we do need to have a member from each of the upper tier authorities who have a statutory duty in this space, and she made that happen. So I would like to put on record my thanks to her for acting in that vein. There are a lot of people who will have a lot to say on this issue, but fundamentally this is just one element of how we seek a whole chunk of government support which is desperately needed for this county. And I think, having a body such as this will enable us to be able to really get underneath what is actually being spent and where. It will enable us to set a trajectory around accountability, which I think is missing. And more importantly, I think it will enable us to genuinely tackle some of the challenges we've got around development when it comes to flooding, because we all know that the areas of flood risk can be managed, and it doesn't mean development can't happen, but we do need to make sure we've got the appropriate resources, and we need to have a strategic capability to make sure that the developers contribute accordingly for that, and only if that happens then we'll be able to build the homes that people need. So I think just to say that I'm happy to propose the paper, and thanks to Helena for presenting the report.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Councillor Waltham. Are you proposing all the recommendations as I set out with the amendment? Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. This obviously is an important subject matter, but it's not just flood management, which comes under strategic management of the upper tier, as just been said. This is very live as a topic at the moment, because sadly it's mainly missing from the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which is currently going through, just passed through its first reading at the Lords, and where there's been lobbying to try to get government to actually do more about this with regards to the responsibilities of water providers, water companies and water management agencies, and it's not there. Now, in looking at what this brings, I can understand the ambitions, but it tells us an awful lot about what it doesn't cover, and rightly so. So mainly, if we break it, if we stay away from flood management at the moment and actually talk about water provision, then more often than not, that comes under planning. When we talk about where we're going to have new water supplies, it's generally in response to planning applications, or I would like to say local plans, but unfortunately, the water companies are sadly lacking in their appreciation of business alignment with local plans. But if it's anything above that, such as large water transfers, which such as pipelines, again comes under planning. And if it's major infrastructure, as we see with the Lincolnshire Reservoir, then it's an NSIP, and therefore it does come under planning to a certain degree, but as we know, Secretary of State makes the decision. But in all of this, most of the issues we deal with water provision and water investment are planning issues, I think it's disgraceful that there isn't membership there for district councils. If we put the 3 constituent authorities on there because of their strategic responsibilities with flood management, then by the same token, with regards to the people that are spending an awful lot of time and investment into water management and water provision outside of the water companies, then it's the planning authorities. So I will be suggesting amendments at the moment. But also within there we're going to allow the Association of Drainage Authorities. Now, can I tell you who it is who spends millions of pounds each year out of taxpayers' money to the drainage authorities? Because you're going to come back to the same answer as the district councils. When we've got somebody like Boston that I think at the moment I think it's 63 pence in every council tax pound collected, goes straight out to the drainage boards, then I think that there should be a voice in this for the people that are having to deal with this on a day-by-day basis. So I don't disagree with the ethos of why this is being set up and the fact that we need wide-ranging partners. But at the moment, you need people as well that are actually dealing with this. The water companies do not talk to local authority. You know, then you've got the EA, then you've got the drainage boards. So you need the widest possible collection of people that are used to dealing with this, who actually see the practicalities and pitfalls and the strategic side of it, to actually be involved in those discussions and not just invited every now and then, you know, a little pat on the head to say you might be interested in this item. We need to be actually at the table, actually being a part of the discussion as grown-ups. So I would, before the vote be taken, like to propose an amendment that there is representation for the district councils, not just to say that we're there, but because we deal with drainage boards, we deal with the planning, we deal with the water companies, and therefore it's something that we've been fighting and trying to deal with for a long time, and we'd like to see representation, please, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll see what other members say about that. We can come back to that in a minute. Councillor Nannerstad.
I'd like to second what Councillor Wright has put forward. District councils, it's not just about planning, but it's about finance. The district councils across Lincolnshire are paying more than £15 million a year between them in drainage board levies. In the case of East Lindsey, they're paying over £5 million a year out of their budget, which is a huge, huge amount. And that it's really important that their districts are involved, not just because of the amount they're paying, but also because of the planning issues and the issues of water supply, as well as getting rid of water and as well as dealing with flooding. So I'd endorse what Councillor Wright has said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I need to declare an interest that I sit on as a county councillor on the Regional Flood Authority. I also sit on the Lincolnshire County Council Environment Committee, which now deals with flooding, and I sit on the Welland and Deepings Internal Drainage Board. So I'm fascinated about water. I'm really pleased that this is a priority for the authority. It's certainly something that does need putting together and pushing together in the way that Ben was talking about earlier on, cramming them together to create some energy. But I agree with my colleagues to the right. The list of attendees should include a representative of district councils, perhaps a nominee from the district joint committee or a nominee from district councils to be chosen by the district joint committee. How much will it cost? I don't know who I'm asking that question to. I guess the mayor. How much is budgeted for this entity? And then with regard to the role of the partnership, I think there's a couple of bits that are missing. I'm sure that when you first meet, you'll find them. But the supply infrastructure of water is a massive gaping hole in government policy and can't really be dealt with by districts, or I'm not even sure if it can be dealt with by the water boards. But if we want to build all these hundreds of thousands of houses, then we're going to need electricity and water. And that certainly I would want to put onto the agenda of this meeting. On Friday, I attended the Environment Committee in this room, and we talked about two issues, two pressing issues. firstly, FENS 2100, and secondly, the Linked Coast 2100. I implore you to include coastal flooding issues and Fenland flooding issues, and lobbying for more money to whichever entity is able to put stronger, more resilient coastal defences up. I don't think the coast is mentioned in here. If it is, it's hardly at all, but the coast is really important. And I can't get through this, although the lady from the Environment Agency did manage to get through the whole presentation on FENS 2100 last week without saying the words climate change. But I'll say that the impending catastrophe of climate change is going to affect this agenda very soon. Certainly before the Atomic Energy Authority have solved all our energy needs. So I think climate, I don't expect to win it, but I think that climate change should be written and embedded into this document and into the work of this group. And I commend the Mayor on bringing this committee, or whatever it is, this partnership together in order to address the impending catastrophe of climate change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I think we've got a suggestion. We seem to be some agreement that we should perhaps look again at the membership and include a representative from the district councils.
So yes, I think, thank you, Councillor Baxter, for all of your input into that. I think it's something that we can certainly review and see where we can go forward with that. As for the cost, I don't know the answer to that, but we can find that out for you. And as for lobbying, I would say yes, definitely on board with that for the coastal areas.
Okay, so Councillor Watford, you originally proposed that. Are you prepared to accept the amendment as well?
Of clarity then, is the proposal that there would be one representative of all district councils?
Yes, yeah, getting nods, yeah.
Right, I mean, I have to say that my agenda clearly in the origins of my speaking before was in relation to the unitary council space there. So I mean, I'm sure deferring to Councillor Matthews would be helpful, because obviously we don't cover the county council area. I mean, it doesn't. The district, another district representative matters not to me, and I would be happy to support it. But I do think it should be deferred to Councillor Matthews to contribute on it, given that it's his area.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get some consensus here, if we can. Councillor Matthews, would you be content with a district council representative?
I was trying to avoid getting involved in this one, really. Yeah, look, at the moment, the thing is, I guess, local government reorganisation raises its ugly head, and you're probably talking about 4 or 5 meetings before districts aren't involved anymore. But why not? Why not get them involved in the moment? Because like Councillor Wright said, they are the planning authorities for all of these things. Yeah. They are the ones with the knowledge and experience. So why not get them involved? The only other thing I'd like to say is that yesterday I was at the coast with the Environment Agency, and it's daunting to see the risks that we are under. But that is because before the Romans, we reclaimed that land. It's got nothing to do with climate change. Thank you.
In which case, Chair, I'm happy to proceed with the addition of the district council representative. I mean, in terms of climate change, I have to say that I don't think that's relevant to the paper. So I think we've got purpose around what we're trying to achieve there, which is the district council representation. So I'm happy to move on that basis.
I mean, and certainly as far as a local authority like North East Lincolnshire is concerned, it's not just about flood risk, as has already been pointed out by Councillor Wright. It's also about water availability. We've had a number of major potential business investments which have been put at risk by lack of availability of water, and that's something that we are currently pursuing through other channels, if you'll pardon the pun. Right, okay, so we seem to have agreed. Councillor Shreve.
Thank you, Chair. One small point, and I'm sorry, but I'm proposing a very small amendment. In the terms of reference on page 31, in terms of frequency, it says frequency will be decided by the Business and Infrastructure Board and be flexible depending on tasking, which is fair enough. But in the paper that we're receiving, there's no reference to frequency of meetings. So what I would propose is we add a sentence in there on its first meeting, this panel proposes the frequency with which it meets, which will be taken to the infrastructure panel for agreement.
Business Infrastructure Board, yeah. Yeah.
Point of information, if you look at paragraph 13, it does.
It does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
Okay. It seems, apparently it's covered anyway, yeah.
that. Okay,
Okay.
apologies.
No, that's fine, Councillor Shreve, thank you anyway. So there seems to be general consensus around the room that we want to include a district council representative. So on that basis, we have a proposer and seconder for the recommendations already. So on that basis, can we move to a vote?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so we're voting for item 9 and to include the amendment, the district council involvement. So those voting for say yes, those voting against say no, and those abstaining say abstain. Councillor Sheard? Yes. Councillor Jackson?
For?
Councillor Matthews? Yes. Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Waltham? Councillor Poole? Councillor Shreve? Councillor Nanastad?
For.
Councillor Wright?
For.
Councillor Baxter? That's unanimous, Chairman.
Good, thank you very much for your contributions on that one. Let's move on to item 10, the Greater Lincolnshire Innovation Strategy. Report from the Interim Chief Operating Officer, which presents a Greater Lincolnshire Innovation Strategy for adoption by the authority, and more detail of the strategies set out at Appendix A on page 37. So I'll ask Mr. Surdifield to come in on this one.
Yep, so the report in the pack is going to take you through the approach and challenges around innovation, and Caroline Illingworth is the lead officer on this. I'll ask her to take you through the content.
Thank you, Lee. So the strategy that we're bringing before you this afternoon builds on the work that was done last year by the Greater Lincolnshire Innovation Commission and the resulting innovation route map that they developed. The strategy itself is designed to create a culture of innovation across Greater Lincolnshire. So there we're thinking about increasing levels of research and development investment and improving productivity levels. It's designed to target opportunities related to our growth priorities and in particular thinking about how we increase the levels of high-paying innovation-related jobs. And it's designed to convene partners and build collaboration and connections. And there we're particularly focusing on how to increase the share of innovation funding that we can bring into Greater Lincolnshire. So the strategy itself is built around 2 objectives. The first being to support all businesses to innovate, with focus there on creating support structures for our businesses. So looking at ways that we can support how businesses can access innovation funding, how they can access innovation resource, and how they can learn how to build innovation into their own businesses. And also looking at the capital assets that we have related to innovation across Greater Lincolnshire, where the gaps are and where we could look at potential to enhance those capital assets to build better innovation ecosystems. The second objective relates to accelerating strategic growth and innovation opportunities. So within this objective, we've defined 3 potential innovation accelerators that the Innovation Commission identified as having the greatest potential for growth. So the first one of those is relating to the defence and security sector, so looking at ways that AI and big data could be used, particularly in crossover areas, so looking at how we can connect what's happening within the defence and security sector into the healthcare sector and the agri-food sector. The second accelerator focuses particularly on ag tech and food security. And the third accelerator, looking at advanced manufacturing with particular links into emerging opportunities around the energy sector, such as step fusion that we heard about earlier. Adopting this strategy is important for the authority for 2 or 3 different reasons. So the first, because it gives us a framework around which we can build our delivery programs around innovation. Secondly, because we have an aspiration to work with Innovate UK, which is the main funding body for innovation through the UK government, to co-develop an action plan. And having an adopted innovation strategy is a prerequisite for starting that process. And then thirdly, because it gives us the strategic framework on which we can start to build bids for innovation funding as and when funds become available. So we present this strategy for adoption this afternoon. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So clearly innovation is going to be very important for Greater Lincolnshire if we want to improve productivity and if we also want to meet the aspirations that we have for our economy across the Greater Lincolnshire footprint. So do I have any contributions from members on from the floor on this one? No? It's a very thorough paper, so thank you very much for that. We are asked to endorse the Greater Lincolnshire Innovation Strategy by the authority at Appendix A for adoption by the authority. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Right, if there are no speakers, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, apologies, Chairman. I mean, I'm just going through the documents, and I just wanted to reiterate the point that innovation isn't really just about getting funding and supporting the routes to getting funding, etc. It's also about ensuring that businesses invest in the area and also invest in their staff. And I'd just like to see, if I haven't seen that in the strategy, but I just want to see that something is captured in there that reinforces that point as well. It's about investing in the area and also investing in staff as well.
Yeah, staff training in particular. Yeah, is that reflected somewhere in the policy, or can we add it strategy, or can we ensure that we add it in?
We can certainly add some wording in relating to that. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so with that addition, let's move to a vote, please. Mr. West.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, item 10 then, with that addition, innovation strategy. Councillor Sheard. For. Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Matthews. For. Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Waltham. For. Councillor Poole. For. Councillor Shreve.
For.
Councillor Nanastad. For. Councillor Wright.
For.
Councillor Baxter. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Good, thank you very much. That's approved, and thank you for that report and strategy. Right, let's move on to item 11, preparing a Greater Lincolnshire Spatial Development Strategy. Before us, we have a report from the Interim Deputy Director, which presents a potential duty of CCAs to prepare a spatial development strategy to the board and seek approval for the commencement of preparatory activity. So all we're doing at the moment is, if you like, taking the first steps in terms of preparation for this. So I'll just ask Ruth Carver if she wants to add anything at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair said, we are informing members about a potential duty, effectively, of a spatial development strategy that will effectively be placed upon combined authorities. And at this stage, all we're doing is seeking your approval to undertake some preparatory activity and agree to accept any funding to support any strategy development that may come through government. So a spatial development strategy, as I'm sure you're aware, is a high-level strategic document that focuses on the spatial dimensions across Greater Lincolnshire, and going through the House of Lords and the House of Commons at the moment is a bill that would place a duty on the combined authority to be defined as a strategic planning authority and therefore develop a strategic development strategy. The main point being that these are higher level matters of strategic importance, and they absolutely do sit alongside existing local plans and neighbourhood plans, so they all work together as a development framework and development strategy. A lot of detail has yet to emerge as it's still going through, and guidance is still yet to be issued in full. So today, all we are doing is seeking approval from the Business and Infrastructure Board to begin preparations and planning with all the local authorities in the area, and effectively this will start to take us into a space of how would we work together in this particular area, how would we develop a plan and understand what's already happened across the areas. So it's preparatory work that we are seeking approval to do at this particular stage. There are no fiscal implications from this at this stage. This is asking existing officers to work with existing officers across Greater Lincolnshire to take this forward. Thank you. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just interested, Ruth, on what we're going to prepare for. Now, you might not have. I've been doing responses to the infrastructure and planning bill for the last 8 months, and it's been a moving feast, and it's still a moving feast. And at the first reading of the Lords, they rejected the 600 amendments that have been put through, which I suggest will not get through second reading. And some of those apply to SDS's mayoral powers, mayoral development orders, and also you did say that they sit alongside local plans, but that's not entirely, because there is an attempt to actually give mayors the powers to actually, shall I use the word interfere in local plans? That's not aimed at mayors, but at the process. And so if you're going to do preparatory work, bearing in mind with regards to local plans, they still have not initiated the 30-month timetable for universal coverage of local plans, and that's been announced since February, and they still haven't given a start date for that. So I don't see how they can even think about the formation of SDSs at mayoral level and what they'll contain when they still haven't achieved universal coverage of local plans, which they are saying it needs before we can get to that stage. So I just think at the moment it's very, very early doors to be trying to second guess what's going to be through till at least we get the next stage of the infrastructure and planning bill through to see where the direction of travel is and what's in it and what falls.
Yeah, before I bring Ruth Covering, I suppose it's good that we are being asked to approve an early mandate to actually be prepared and do some work on this when it becomes appropriate. But maybe I've given the answer that you're just going to give.
Thank you, Chair. It's not undertaking priority work. It's not commissioning any research or kind of evidence base. It's just a pure conversations about how we would work together. And I think if we think the state of our development, we are thinking through strategic frameworks, we're progressing corporate plans, we're also thinking about the local growth plan. We will need to have a spatial element to that. We're not pressing the button, we're not kind of, committing resources to this. We want to have conversations with the local authorities in our area about kind of what is happening. And I agree there's lots of amendments going through at this particular point, so it may take a little bit of time. But I wanted to get the mandate to go ahead so that we can start to have conversations with local authorities who have already reached out to us and said, what are you starting to think about spatial development strategies in this particular way? So it would just be early conversations at this stage.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of the officers from Lincolnshire County Council, and certainly many from the Mayor's office, will know that I'm quite keen on keeping things as simple as possible, and certainly in terminology and wordings. Now, I know the wording and terminology is not yours. It comes from government. However, when we do get to the stage where we start developing any long-term strategy, I'd really like us to think about the terminology, because even the report title is baffling if you're not particularly involved in local politics. So it's difficult because it's not our wording, and he's nodding away because he knows that I am constantly trying to keep things readable for normal, everyday people, and stuff like this just gets people look at it and go, not interested. So can I make a plea that we keep it in layman's terms as much as we possibly can? Thank you.
Yes, I would certainly agree with that, Councillor Matthews. I think it's probably only the NHS that has more of a language of its own than the planning fraternity. So yes, I would support that. Okay, so with that request, sorry, Councillor Baxter.
I've got a few questions, well, just a couple of questions. One is on the timeline. There's a paragraph, 2 paragraphs that say indicative timeline, but there's no actual times on them. Can you have an indicative timeline, perhaps? Would it be, for example, within the next 12 months or within the Mayor's first term, assuming it is a first of many? And secondly, could you tell me who was involved in the workshop discussion on the 10th of September? It certainly passed me by, but it may well have gone a different direction. And thirdly, what budget have you got? What budget has been put aside for this work?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of indicative timetable, I can't really give an indicative timetable as it hasn't passed through the House of Commons or the House of Lords at that stage. But certainly in terms of bringing partners and stakeholders together, we would aspire to do something before Christmas to have kind of early conversations. In terms of financial, we haven't allocated any money to this, so it's not within the budget that was approved. Because it would be a long tail. So to do something like a spatial development strategy or whatever we kind of call it could take up to kind of 2 years from the point in which we start, but we haven't done that starting gun at this particular point. In terms of the workshop on the 10th of September, it was all local authorities and their planning and housing officers that came to a workshop with the combined authority, and we spoke to them. The next item will tell you a little bit more detail about that, but we also spoke about our aspirations in this particular space to all of the local authority officers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was helpful. Thank you. Right, so the recommendations are on page 53. So Business and Infrastructure Board is recommended to note the duty to produce a spatial development strategy should the Planning and Infrastructure Bill become law later in the year. Approve the commencement of preparatory activity in conjunction with the area's local planning authorities to enable the future development of a spatial development strategy, and agree to accept and implement any funds that may become available from the government to support the strategy development. And before Councillor Baxter pointed out, areas in recommendation 2 should have an apostrophe in it. Right. So do I have a proposer and seconder, Councillor Matthews? Yes. Do I have a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Wright. Thank you. Any other speakers? Right. No. Let's move to a vote then, please, Mr. West.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, item 11, spatial development strategy. Those voting for say yes, those against say no, and those abstaining say abstain. Councillor Sheard?
Yes.
Councillor Jackson?
Yes.
Councillor Matthews? Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Waltham? Councillor Poole? Councillor Shreve?
For.
Councillor Nanastad?
For.
Councillor Wright?
Yes.
Councillor Baxter? That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. That's approved then. Thank you, members. Moving on then to the final item on this afternoon's agenda, the GLCCA Emerging Housing Strategy preparations for Strategic Place Partnership. Plenty of planning terms in there to get your head around. And this is to receive a report from the Strategic Lead Infrastructure and Economic Vision, which seeks approval to commence sifting of pipeline sites in line with agreed objectives and investment principles. So I'll ask Helena Davis to introduce the item.
Chair, if I can defer to my colleague to my right, it'll be Carolina Borgstrom presenting this paper today.
Thank you, Carolina Borgstrom.
Thank you very much, Chair, and apologies for the acronym. We are still in the planning world and we are also in the world of Homes England. So this board paper provides an update of the housing work stream and the emerging housing strategy of the CCA. The housing work stream continues to be informed and delivered based on collaboration across 10 local authorities with regular officer stakeholder meeting. And for clarity, that is the last meeting held on the 10th September. Attendees represented all local plan areas, housing authorities, Lincolnshire County Councils and the CCA. This is a space where local authorities have some experience of working really closely together, and those partnership working on officer levels have always been very strong. All authorities have been consulted on and had opportunity to feed back on the final housing pipeline and the objectives and principles set out in the paper. All feedback received to date from housing and planning authorities have been accommodated in the proposed directions set out in the board paper. The next step for this work will be funded by continuing revenue support grant from Homes England, and any external support required would be procured using Homes England framework. The paper requests the board to support commencement of sifting and prioritisation on the housing pipeline sites based on their alignment with the principles set out in the CCA's emerging corporate and growth plan. The more detailed investment principle proposed to guide this work are set out in section 4 of the paper. This will initially identify a range of strategic but stalled sites where regional focus through the SPP partnership and wider CCA work could add extra value to work alongside the Housing and Planning Authority to bring some extra engine or investment in partnership with Homes England. It is to add value, not to duplicate current effort. It is recommended that the board note the progress, approved the proposed spend for the awarded Homes England capacity funding, and support the proposed vision, objectives and investment principles which will inform the sifting process.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, clearly housing formed a major part of the devolution deal, and is also going to be a major driver for moving the combined authority forward. Do I have any speakers on this, please? Councillor Waltham.
Thank you, Chair. So I think we pretty much summed up at the last meeting when we had a housing update, bearing in mind that, you know, the market will build what the market will build. That's the easy bit, you know, because they will just go ahead and build what's profitable for them. So what we're here to influence in policy terms is for those people who don't fit the market profile, and to make sure that we're using resources across all our agendas, and particularly the influence of the combined authority, to make sure that we use that to target 3 groups. And we identified 3 groups last time. There was the older people's housing stock, which frankly the market's not interested in. They don't care if old people fall downstairs. They're not bothered. And frankly, that's a significant failure in the market space. But we do know we're nearing 30% of our population who are over 65, who will be the next by a successive failure, if you can mix your metaphors, is that frankly we will end up with endless people on hospital trolleys in A&E departments because we haven't got the right housing mix in that space. The second one, which is the minutes do pick up quite well, which is the veterans, which we have a significant proportion, larger than most geographies in the area, that we need to be making sure we're supporting them. And then the final point, which is younger people, getting younger people into the housing market, which again, because they don't have enough money to save up, to get connected, and also they struggle even to get a rental or a tenancy because of the challenges around that, the supply side pressures in that space. So I absolutely support the sentiment of the paper, but what it's not capturing is those 3 target groups, which is really our focus, if I'm honest. So it's one thing to talk more generally about meeting housing need and waiting to see what Homes England give us and all that sort of stuff. But frankly, until we're specific about what is actually needed from our most vulnerable groups, then frankly, I don't think Homes England will take us seriously. You know, and nor will be able to provide clarity to anybody else who's prepared to develop in this space. Anyway, so I mean, so broadly I support the paper. I absolutely support the commitment to avoid duplication with local authorities, well, you know, that should happen anyway. But I do think we need to have a recommendation about our priority groups that sets out quite clearly, and so I'm happy to move the paper, but I do want to make sure we've got this provision for our older people, our veterans, and making sure there's opportunities for young people in the housing space. So I would add that as a item 4 on the recommendation, just so we're absolutely clear when we're submitting to government who are our priority spaces. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watson. That's a really helpful comment and introduction to the debate. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Waltham's proposal? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sharif.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to second what Councillor Walton said and endorse his views about our target audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of it picks up on Councillor Waltham's, especially with Homes England. There's a little bit I see missing from this. So, and also a slight contradiction. Whilst everybody today is recognising veterans, and I thank all the non-veterans for doing that. I mean, as a housing need, we have to be very careful that actually the numbers are not as substantial when you're looking at strategic policy. There is a need to a certain level, but when the numbers we're talking about, and when I say numbers we're talking about, we've got a government that at the moment is hell-bent on putting 1.5 million permissions in place without a single tool to turn them into the 1.5 million homes they talk about. And so we've got a national policy of 10 to 20 years of land banking coming through. And that's fair to say because at the moment the build-out rate has actually dropped from the big 6 builders. They're producing fewer homes this year than they ever have done for the last 5 years. Part of the problem with regards to what I'm seeing here, and it's because it contains a little bit of hope, and that hope is that Homes England will see us as fantastic and will work with us as a combined authority and agree the same principles. Unfortunately, Homes England is a tool of the government, and the government has also said that it will stop funding where local authorities don't have local plans in place. This is silent on local plans because unless all the areas of Greater Lincolnshire have local plans in place, then the government is threatening to pull the plug on future homes provision, and that means Homes England money because that's the only money that's available at the moment. Now, for those that have got local plans, such as ourselves, we found Homes England to be, a fantastic partner to work with and recognise that where strategic housing is planned, especially through the SUE programme, the Sustainable Urban Extension, sorry, Councillor Matthews, I've been talking planning for too long, we've found that they are very cooperative, but it is still, as Councillor Waltham said, market-led. We still have to have the market on board. And of course the market, yes, to a certain degree for them, a lack of local plans, if there's not a 5-year land supply demonstrated, is the fantastic place to invest because they get away with even less bungalows, which even the government has admitted we need more bungalows building, they said last month. So I would like to see somewhere within here that the part of this strategy is also to work with the constituent councils to make sure that our strategies and plans are up to date to actually now allow this to actually to work. Because if they're not in place to start with, I think they've actually referred to it, Joanna Averley, the head planner at MHCLG, referred to local plans as the bedrock of any planning policy coming forward in any strategy, including mayoral development strategies. So if we haven't got the bedrock, we haven't got anything to build on. So I do think we need to have something in there that includes a mention to making sure that we're working with to remove the obstructions that any local authorities are finding, local planning authorities are finding to the local plan process. Otherwise, the rest of it stands a chance of failing massively.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright. Do officers just want to respond to that point? Because I guess it sounds pretty fundamental.
Our understanding at this point is the strategic place partnership works differently to what the partnership with local authorities do. So what we were requested to do was to develop our own regional pipeline, which is why a lot of the work has focused on getting the data in from the planning authorities into that pipeline, which Homes England has accepted as a strategic plan. So I'm happy to take the direct question back to them, but the requirement about local plan in relation to the regional priorities and the work of the MCCA appears to be slightly different. We need an evidence base. We don't, because we're not in control of the local plan, it is less led by the local plan demand.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, if I can just come back, I'm not going to disagree with that, but unfortunately that's been superseded in the last few months of the Homes England being weaponised by the government. So whereas Homes England has had quite a bit of autonomy over the last few years, it's now being linked into the local plan process, and that was, yes, the person responsible, she's got into a bit of difficulty with her home ownership and is no longer there. But there hasn't been so far rescinding by any Minister or Secretary of State with regard to that statement. And so we just need to make sure that if we are going to base it on Homes England cooperation and what they said previously, that Homes England are in a position to see that through and not interfered with by the Secretary of State for housing or for development.
Okay, I'm sure officers will note that. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Councillor Nanstad.
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting report. I've seen the pipeline, which I support. It's very comprehensive. On some of the other points, on the vision, on paragraph 3, within that there is discussion about ensuring our homes cater for the needs of all our population, etc., and also about supporting those in greatest need. So I accept veterans in some circumstances are among those groups, but there are other groups, and I would like to see some emphasis, more emphasis on affordable and social housing provision, because there are people who aren't in a position who will be able to buy their own homes. They need a home to live in. Private rented accommodation is not necessarily what they would like to live in for all sorts of reasons, and social housing does have a place in the world of housing. In terms of veterans accommodation in a veterans village, can there be some explanation as to what that might actually mean? Because, for instance, if it's to be sort of supported housing, it needs the level of support in terms of mental health, physical health potentially, and does Lincolnshire, for instance, offer treatment for complex PTSD, which they certainly didn't until very recently, and maybe they don't, and that might be a really important issue, because if people can't get the treatment that they need because the local health partnership doesn't do that, that is potentially a real issue. There's also the issue of older people's homes, which Councillor Waltham has mentioned, and extra care units, which have been identified as a need, certainly in Lincolnshire, but they need to be in the right place. So you can build a nice 60, 70 bed unit in a village and really struggle to fill that. And you can if you build it in the right place, you will fill it almost immediately. And there is a unit in a village near Lincoln, which is not in Lincoln City area, obviously, which opened, I think, in March or April, and is still not fully occupied. They spend their time advertising on radio on a regular basis, trying to get people in, whereas other places, which are in more urban areas, have people, are oversubscribed. So there needs to be some care as to where these facilities go.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure officers will take those matters on board if they aren't already included. I think Councillor Waltham's amendment included some of that, but I think the rest of it you'll take on board. Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Waltham.
Yeah, well, just to come back on the point about the local plan, I mean, I do absolutely support Councillor Wright in his speech about local plans. It seems absolutely perverse. The government have set as a target, which means most of our local plans are worthless because they don't, as you say, your commitment first of all, and the primary premise of having a 5-year land supply is worthless now because most of us you couldn't allocate to that level of target. So it becomes worthless. And just to the point about affordable and social housing in this space, I think that is best met by each local plan, because only local areas, I think forgive me, the councillor does actually support a specific view there, which he used an excellent example. If you build something that isn't allocated properly, where the right level of infrastructure is met at a local space, then then frankly, social and affordable schemes won't work. So this is where I think we need to have a bigger view in terms of harnessing extra support for specific groups rather than meeting that need, which I think local plans do actually do much better at a local authority basis, and also to say that you know, this is to avoid duplication with local authorities. It is stressing absolutely that that point. So other than that, I'm you know, I'm happy to accommodate those other points.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm on a bit of a learning curve. There's a lot in this that I don't understand. Firstly, the second recommendation that we approve the proposed spend for awarded Homes England capacity funding. What is that funding? How much is it? Where is it? Has it come?
Officers?
We have been awarded £62,000 to help us with the technical tasks of sifting tasks, looking at local plan data and getting some of those technical report backs.
So that's the awarded Homes England capacity funding to enable us to do the work.
£62,000. Don't spend it all at once. The second question was, this morning, and a couple of people have mentioned it already. This morning, the Mayor mentioned that the Veterans Villages will be started before Christmas, or before the end of the year. Where are these Veterans Villages? Before the end of next year? Okay, I must have misheard. Okay.
Okay, let's try and keep Councillor Baxter.
Do we know where that Veterans Village that would be started before the end of 2026 will be?
I don't think this is really relevant to the agenda item actually at the moment, so I think that's maybe something we ought to deal with outside of the meeting.
Okay, if there's a mechanism for that, that would be great. But Veterans Villages, are they mentioned in here at all? No, they're not mentioned in here at all. No. Okay. The third one, under paragraph 4.2, part C, it mentions encourage co-funding. We'll use whichever money we have found, presumably more than £62,000, to enable wider transformation of gaps in the affordable housing supply. I don't. Can you help me understand how that works? Are you helping the developer or the local authority or who? Homes England?
It could be a combination of both. There is some really good examples with East Midlands Combined Authority where they have managed to unlock sites in Nottingham City Centre. That's I can provide the sites after the meeting, of the reason that by the mayoral combined authority stepping in together with local authority funding or TANS funding or other funding, they are closing the gap together to make that funding offer viable together with a developer.
And finally, Chair, the last, I think it's the last one on that paragraph. Yeah, it goes from 4.2 to 6. So what happened to paragraph 5? That's what I want to know. Address market failure is the last of paragraph 4. I'm pleased that we acknowledge that the market does fail. I'm not a Thatcherite, and I don't think the market is particularly always the best route for some things. Sometimes you get too many things, like numbers of barbers in my town centre, and sometimes you don't get enough. Does market failure include things like the one I raised at the last meeting? There are particular sites within the area, like the beloved Sleaford Maltings, that is beautiful but redundant at the moment, and also the Johnson Hospital in Spalding, which is, again, a beautiful building, but it's been decrepit and derelict for years on end. Are we hoping to turn the key to those sites?
I can't comment on specific site, but market failures refers to site that wouldn't be viable for the private market to develop because the cost of development is higher than the cost the market would pay for the units. So the sites you described could very well be stuck due to market failure. The purpose of this work is to identify those sites and then sift them and prioritise them based on strategic importance.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nalenstad.
Just a quick further question. In all the analysis and data gathering on this, has there been any analysis of the number of houses which have planning permission that haven't been built, which is likely to be many thousands.
Yes, and the wider document, which is the housing pipeline document, which is several hundred pages long, it's available to be shared with all elected members. In there you will see, both for Greater Lincolnshire but also by local authority, the sites that are allocated that has not been built. At this point in time, we got enough allocated sites in the short to medium term to cater for the need. What the pipeline is showing is we need a route to delivery, to speed up delivery, to speed up build on those sites.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. Is a similar process going to be, as used for the housing, going to be introduced for prioritising investment into commercial land?
Yeah, I think we're straying off the agenda a bit here, but anyway, I'm sure Ruth Carver is itching to respond. So.
It's an important part of our kind of development and economy. It's something that we've started to talk through. We haven't got any solid plans in place, but it's certainly something that we're aware of and would like to take forward.
Okay, thanks. Right, so we have a recommendation on the table that's been moved and seconded, with the addition of number 4, which Councillor Waltham proposed when he supported the recommendations are on page 59, and that's been seconded as well. So unless we have any other speakers, we'll move to a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so it's item 12 with that addition of the priority groups to be included. We'll start with the voting. Councillor Sheard.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Matthews. 4. Councillor Kelly.
4.
Councillor Waltham. 4. Councillor Poole. 4. Councillor Shreve.
4.
Councillor Nannerstead.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Councillor Baxter. 9 votes for, 1 abstention.
That's 9 for and 1 abstention, so that's approved. So that's the final item on the agenda. So thank you very much this afternoon, both to members and officers, for their input to the meeting. I think we've considered some very important strategic issues for the combined authority, had some good debates. So thank you very much for your contributions, and I'll draw the meeting to a close.